travel other than that. So that's one of my great regrets, which I know other parts of the world are actually shocked, because I think the rest of the world does more world travel because a lot of times the countries are near to each other. I mean, I know that there's battles that have existed between like the UK and Ireland, but then there's also Norway and Denmark and other countries that are near you that it's just easier to get to. It's like us going to say New York or DC, whereas so I think that there's a little bit more confined nature of where you can say that you're traveling around the world or traveling to other countries, just because the other countries are so close together. Whereas, our closest other country is Mexico and Canada, and they're not exactly a hop, skip, and a jump away from Raleigh or from our area.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky. In 1 hour, I can be in France, or I can be in Amsterdam in 1 hour. Right. It sounds so strange, but and it's a completely different language experience. We drive on the other side of the road. That's the biggest head thing. So we are very much, I know we've just had this kind of Brexit thing, but we are very much embraced with Europe. We're very close to it. We're very near it. And if you live in London or in a city town, it's everywhere. The variety and diversity of language is absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, and it just seems like y'all have that richness. So it sounds like, how many of the countries have you actually traveled to that are nearby, and have you gone to other countries other than the United States that were a little bit across in the pond, as they call it?
Well, before I won the award, my parents were migrants from Greece and Cyprus. So it was, they would save every penny they had just to make sure that every summer holiday we could go back to Greece and visit my auntie and uncle there. And, that for us was like a privilege, because many of my school friends, they never left Camden, Right. So I was lucky enough that we were always kind of, every summer holiday we went, we went to the beach, we went to Greece. It was different language, different food. But now, since winning the award, I've just been really fortunate to travel, but not really travel. I say just to visit, kind of very quickly visit, and then having to get home, because obviously, I've got my 2 girls, my husband, my family, I've got a job, I'm still teaching, so I've got to make sure that I try a little bit of, I have some regularity in my life too.
Now, I'm just curious now, sometimes people, when they get in, this just kind of a question of curiosity, some people, when they're in different fields, their spouses wind up being in that same field. We were talking about like the artist that managed to marry an artist, but I know we just recently lost the designer of the African American Museum not that many months ago. That was Phil Freelon, who passed away. I believe it was a Lou Gehrig disease, but his wife, Nina Freelon, is an accomplished jazz musician. They have a son that's a rapper, hip hop artist, and a daughter who's a visual artist. And then they've got other parts of the family that are not in the arts and everything, but architecture, music, somewhat related, still somewhat in the creative field. But then I've also had friends that are, literally doctors and married to like maybe the plumber or somebody like that. So I'm just wondering, is your husband in the education field as well, or was he like totally against education in terms of a career? And also your kids, are they thinking that they want to be teachers? We talked about you want to be a teacher when you were a young child and everything, but as your daughters, and I think you said it's 2 daughters, were they thinking that they wanted to be in the arts or teaching when they grow up, or are they already telling you, no, Mom, we don't want to do this?
So it's very, very interesting, because being a typical Greek woman, it is my big fat family. So it's very much extended when I think about the word family for me. So it's the uncles, the grandparents, that kind of thing. So in my family, teaching is very predominant. So my father's a priest, so stroke teacher. So obviously he's a teacher. My mum teaches adult education. My sister's a teacher. My brother, interestingly enough, he's an examiner for drivers. So when you're learning to drive, he's an examiner. So I suppose that's kind of a teacher. Yeah. My husband is not, but oh my God, he'd be great. He'd be great at being a teacher. He's got perfect mannerisms to be a teacher. My daughters, though, I think what was it? I think yesterday or this morning, my youngest, my 8-year-old, said, "Mum, I want to be a spy." So there you go. I think but what's been lovely is actually what's been really great is spending time with them during this COVID time and just seeing how their personalities have changed, developed, how grown up they are, and seeing what their interests alike, and one of them has from the beginning has been extraordinarily creative in everything she does. She can take a shoebox and make that into a castle. That's how creative she is. The other one, no. However, recently she sat there and she did a lovely drawing, which took her a whole day. But her sense of accomplishment for making that drawing was incredible, and it came out so beautiful. I was gobsmacked. So again, it's like I think everyone has got something creative inside of them, but it's just a case of being in that environment, that nurturing environment, just to let it unleash and unfold and see how it develops itself naturally.
Yep. And what would you say to folks that are thinking about going into teaching, whether they're thinking about going into teaching here or teaching in the UK or teaching maybe in one of the other countries like Australia or some of our African nations? What would you tell people that you think are the best qualities for a teacher and what makes a good teacher? And maybe even share some of the stories of the teachers that you enjoyed when you were growing up, because I'm sure there were teachers that inspired you, that you really admired, and that you really thought a great deal of.
Oh my God. I mean, Mark, teaching is not a job. Teaching, you don't go into cheap teaching because you think, I want a nice 9-to-5 job, because you're never going to get a 9-to-5 job being a teacher. It is a job which you take home with you. It's a job which you cannot probably switch off sometimes, because you're constantly thinking about how can I do things differently in my classroom, or that didn't work, or that was great, and how are they doing? So you don't switch off. It is an absolute vocation. I do strongly believe that. And teachers who go into the profession feeling that, knowing that, they will enjoy it more. And it's challenging, it's I have bad days. I have days when I'm ripping my hair out and thinking, oh my God, they haven't got it. Why aren't they getting it? Or that kid just drove me up the wall. And but then, there's the other times you have, you leave school skipping because that child has just understood, or that child has made huge progress, maybe because they've had special needs and they've done something incredible that's just blown you away, that's made you want to cry. That's what teaching is about. It's that kind of journey of resilience. It's making sure that you are giving everything to see a young human being grow. Now, if you are that selfless, if you don't mind the extra hours, if you get fulfilled by seeing another person thrive, that's teaching. That is the epitome of teaching, I think. Right. It's hard, but it's the best profession and the best job in the world.
I can believe that. Like I said, I've got relatives that are actually teachers as well. My aunt who passed away of MS, and I think that was about 2 years ago and everything. She was a longtime teacher. She taught, and she was also a principal up in the New Jersey area, and definitely teaching was very important to both her as well as other members of the family. I've talked about my dad, but my mom actually had several jobs as well. In addition to the radio station, helping my dad with his activism work and things of that nature. Her first job out of college was as a guidance counselor. And we know that guidance counselors are very important to the teaching profession, and she's always had a love of teaching. And then I have an aunt here who is she was a medical librarian, and another aunt who was a teacher and is now kind of doing artwork herself. She's actually she's got some Native American roots, and she's actually doing some sewing of homemade mask. She sent me one last week, so when I'm going out, I'm using her homemade mask and everything. So she's definitely got that teaching background, and a lot of the other relatives are doing teaching. I've got a second cousin that's involved in the teaching world, and some others. So one that's athletic director. So I definitely think teaching is very important to folks, and it's been important to my family as well. Now, one of the issues that teachers here have had has been pay. And I don't know how it is in the UK, but that's one of the issues, is that teachers feel that they are way underpaid for what they do. So is that a global issue? Is it a UK-US issue? Or is it something that you've had to fight for as well? Because I do know that here in the United States, teachers are feeling that I'm doing all this tremendous work. We're doing all of this stuff to help your kids and everything, meaning the world's kids, and we're not getting the kind of pay that we should.
I remember when I was in New York, I think it was in September, when was it when I was back? September 2018. I came across I picked up that Time magazine article, which wrote about teachers who had to kind of have 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet.
Right.
There was a section of that where I think there was one lady, she was selling pints of blood just in order to kind of top up her rent. Right. So this happens, that the issue with pay for teaching is horrendous. Now from COVID, we actually should be able to acknowledge the value and the importance of teachers. I truly believe that teachers do not get enough pay in their salary compared to what they do and the overtime which they do. I think that's it. I think it's, if a country really wants to see the future of their nation, you go into any classroom, and if you're happy with what's taking place there, then pay that person appropriately.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing that I know is an issue here, and I'm just wondering how it is in the UK, is there are sometimes folks that are concerned about what some people might consider the over-medication of our youth, meaning that they are diagnosed either through guidance counselors or whatever, and then they're put on things like Ritalin and things of that nature. And I don't know whether that's happening in the UK and other parts of the world, but some of the kids are hyper. That's in my opinion. They're just a little bit hyper, and kids will be hyper sometimes, but they are then diagnosed as being over hyper or whatever, and then they're put on medication here, and then they sometimes become more lackadaisical. And there are issues of control with gangs, and I do think I read elsewhere that y'all have some gang issues within the UK, but I was just wondering if you could elaborate on some of that, is the parallels between the UK and the US in terms of say the medication of our students and how that is affecting education, and also the gang aspect.
No, I can't really give an opinion because I'm not a doctor, and if we are diagnosing, then okay, let's diagnose. I think the question is, are teachers able to support the diagnostic, the diagnoser? Are they able to teach the child? And how do we teach them differently? What do we have to do to kind of meet their learning needs? I think that's the key question here. Things are changing the whole time. We've got to move with the times. So in terms of that, I think it's, if I've got a child in front of me who've got a special learning disorder or need, fine, let me know how is it that this child learns best, and then I'll be able to accommodate their lesson. So we don't have a say, Mark, we don't have a say, as long as but train us and then we'll do the job. I think that's the biggest thing there. In terms of gangs, oh my God, yes, gangs, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Now it's getting more serious because money is a problem, and children want money because money makes them look good, buy good things, phones, shoes, whatever. And why has he got some and I haven't? And I think earning is an issue, and so they will find ways to get money. And being a mule or being part of a gang, if that's something, then that's what they'll try and do. I think for us, it's a case of, as a teacher, I just want to be that kind of person who has that relationship with my young people, so that when they get to that point where they're having to kind of make that tough decision, do I do that or do I do this? I've even noticed they're changing them, and I can say to them, look, what's going on? Or they had the gut to come and talk to me. That would be the perfect moment for me as a teacher, knowing that I helped literally save a young person's life.
Oh yeah, and I think teachers do that oftentimes, and sometimes it's not until later that the person realizes their life has been changed and everything. And sometimes it's not even the traditional teacher, and I'll give a story of that I'm very much aware of it and everything. But there's a gentleman, and we've actually had him on the show, Mike Anderson, but he was involved in drugs and involved in all kinds of stuff. But there were people like Baba Chuck Davis, who was a dancer and has since passed, and others that they connected, they networked, they met, and they actually had a draw to each other. And he's totally got his life on the straight and narrow now. He's probably in his early mid to 40s or something like that, but he's definitely on the straight and narrow, and is actually teaching other people now to get out of that kind of lifestyle. So when we see things like that, that's just a real powerful thing that happens. Because like I said, I'm sure he was doing some education of his own in the prison system. We hear, of course, know the story of Malcolm X and others that did that many decades ago, but it was also people like Baba Chuck and others that reached out to him, and he acknowledges the fact that they helped him see his value. And that's what I think teachers do a lot of times, is help people see their own particular value. Now you talk about your young kids, and I know here I've got my nephews that are 10 and 11, have no kids of my own, but I do have the 10 and 11-year-old nephews.